morning, everyone. I have a prepared statement I'm going to read this morning, and then I'll open it up for questions. But keep in mind, as you ask questions, that we're very early on in the investigation, and we may not be able to release some information that is sensitive to the investigation, or it may simply not be known yet. But we will definitely have some questions after I read a prepared statement. On January 24th, 2016, at 20:59 hours, the City of Waukesha Emergency Communications Center received a call from a female reporting that her boyfriend was drinking alcohol and was very depressed. She reported that he was currently living in the City of Waukesha in the 200 block of Douglas Avenue. The caller reported that he had a history of suicide attempts and that he was currently in possession of a firearm. She stated it was possibly an AR-15 rifle that was under his futon. She advised that he had hung up on her and was now not answering her calls. Officers began to respond to the residents to check on his well-being. The caller contacted dispatch a second time. She advised that she had finally spoken to him again, and he informed her that he was going to reach under his futon and then put a bullet in his head. The caller also advised that the subject lived with his elderly mother in the 200 block of Douglas Avenue. As officers arrived near the suspect's residence, the subject could be seen in the area of the 200 block of Douglas Avenue with a rifle. The subject could be seen aiming the rifle at responding officers. During that observation of that behavior, the rifle was observed to have some form of optic that was described as a green laser on it. The subject disregarded multiple officers' commands to disarm and displayed deadly behavior which imminently threatened the lives of officers and innocent citizens in the area. Based on that behavior, 3 officers were forced to use deadly force in order to stop the threat. The subject then fled on foot with the rifle and was taken into custody less than a block away from the initial encounter. The rifle was located with him and was taken into evidence. No officers were injured during this incident. Officers immediately began using life-saving measures on the subject as he had observable gunshot wounds. The Waukesha Fire Department took over treatment and transported the subject to the Waukesha Memorial Hospital. Preliminary information that we have are the wounds are non-life-threatening. A citizen was struck in the leg by debris as a result of one of the shots that were fired. She was initially treated by officers at the scene and later transported by family members to the Waukesha Memorial Hospital. The citizen received medical treatment and was released from the Waukesha Memorial Hospital. We are not releasing the subject's name, nor are we able to release the officer's name at this time. The experience of the 3 officers involved ranged from 2 years to 4 years of service. As in all officer-involved shootings, they have been placed on a paid administrative leave during the initial investigation. We would like to thank the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department and the New Berlin Police Department for their assistance at the scene. The investigation is continuing today with the assistance of the Wisconsin State Patrol, the Wisconsin Crime Lab, and the District Attorney's Office. Based on the preliminary information that I have to this point, I believe that the officers acted within department policy and statutory authority. They risked their lives to fulfill the mission of the Waukesha Police Department, which is a pledge to serve with integrity, honor, and courage. That's the prepared statement. I'd like to answer a few questions if I'm able to, and keep in mind that it's very early in the investigation.
Chief, so how far away were the officers from this man when they found him on, with a rifle pointed at them? What would you say the distance was?
I don't know the exact distance now. Those are the Wisconsin Crime Lab and the Wisconsin State Patrol are assisting in diagramming and the scene for evidence. I don't know the exact distance between the officers and the suspect at this time.
How is the suspect doing, Chief? He's expected to recover?
He is expected to recover from his wounds, yes.
And Chief, I know it's early, but does this appear to be a suicide by cop situation? What have you guys seen as far as those cases are concerned in the area?
You're correct. Yeah, it is very early in the investigation, so we haven't established exactly the motive of the person for putting our officers in danger and putting citizens in danger. But that will be looked into to determine whether or not this was a suicide by cop.
Was the rifle loaded or fired at all?
I don't know. The scene is still being processed for evidence, and we haven't determined yet whether or not the rifle was fired during this.
Was it just one officer out of the three who fired back, or was it all three who shot at him?
Basically, the information I have right now, 3 officers fired at the suspect.
And do we know how many times he was hit and where he was struck?
Not yet. That information will release in the next day or two. We'll put out additional information, most likely in just a press release, and give you additional details as they become available, such as these specific questions.
Charges be filed?
Charges will be eventually filed, yes, but no time has been determined for the charges to be filed.
Were the officers using rifles or pistols?
All 3 officers used rifles. They did not shoot with their duty handguns, their duty pistols.
Had you ever run into this fella before? Any problems with him in the past, or was he on your radar at all?
We have had one prior incident that I know of with this subject back in 1997. At that scene, which was very similar to last night's incident, he was also arrested for endangering safety by use of a dangerous weapon back in 1997.
There was a squad car that was being towed away with the back windshield broken. Was that hit by gunfire?
I don't know yet if that, I do know that the one squad did have a broken window, as you stated. We haven't determined yet, or at least I don't know exactly what caused that damage.
Did the shooting take place in an alley near homes?
It was near the residence, not in the alley, but he did end up located him in the alley.
Okay, so the shooting took place near where he lived and then he ran through an alley?
Yeah, he ran just a couple houses, less than a block from the initial encounter to where we located him with his wounds.
So the endangering safety, the 1997 incident, was that his only kind of, was that a criminal record then? Was that the only sort of record he had?
That's the, I don't know the exact details of all of his criminal record, but I know that that one's on there. That's the major part of his criminal record that we're looking at.
So this was somebody dangerous.
Yeah, I would say somebody's been arrested for that charge, even though a significant period of time has passed. Yes, that is considered a dangerous person. But the officers really have to focus on what happened last night. When they arrive on scene, their observations, that's what they use. I'm sure they had no knowledge of the 1997 incident. They're using all available information to them at the time of the incident to determine whether or not deadly force is justified and necessary.
Are you guys getting any help with this investigation from any other departments?
Yes, last night, the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department was on scene, as well as the New Berlin Police Department, because the officers put out that there were shots fired. When officers hear that on the radio, any available officer will respond to that scene, and both agencies did respond last night. And as part of the investigation today, the Wisconsin State Patrol and the Wisconsin Crime Lab and the District Attorney's Office are all assisting in the investigation as it continues on today and for the next several days and weeks.
Can you just talk about the procedures and protocol you guys have for when to use force, when you determine that, to use force against someone?
In this incident, we're talking about deadly force. And it's any behavior that the officer that reasonably believes, for deadly force you're talking about? Okay, deadly force, yeah. Behavior which has caused or imminently threatens to cause death or great bodily harm to you or another person or persons. So it could be an officer or a citizen.
The citizen who was struck in the leg, was she outside when this happened?
I don't know the exact location of the citizen that was struck by the debris. All right, thank you very much.
Are you able to answer any questions about the Country Springs incident over the weekend? Just looking for, if you could talk a little bit more about how the officers were injured in the arrest.
I can talk real briefly about that. The 3 of the 4 officers received minor injuries and are able to return to work. The 1 officer received significant injury to a part of his body. I don't want to get too specific on it. And he will be receiving follow-up medical care for that injury.
Can you talk about how those injuries though occurred? Was it involved in arresting this?
Yes, they were. All the injuries received received during the arrest of the suspect.
So was this subject violent towards them? Or?
I don't have all the details on that. I want to more stick to the shooting from aftermath shooting from last night.
Right,
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.